It's 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting of the September 8th, 2008 City Commission meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Vanier.
Here.
Commissioner Jolka.
Here.
Commissioner Larson. Here. Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here. I would invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we'll have a citizens forum, a time for citizens to come before the commission to speak or to comment on anything that is not on the official agenda. Are there any citizens who would like to come forward?
Dennis Lauber from the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce, and I want to take a few seconds to introduce you to a new staff member of ours, Larry Powell. Larry replaced Dave Bossmeyer and is Director of Existing Business Growth and Retention, and his district is everything from North Avenue South all the way to the county line, and from the Interstate 135 East, and working with Aaron White, whose district is opposite of that. Just wanted to introduce him to you so that you could put a name with a face.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis. Welcome, Larry.
Larry Powell.
Anyone else? Awards and proclamations.
The month of September 2008 as Salina Alcohol and Drug Addiction Month. In the city of Salina, Kathy Allen, Ashby House Program Director, will read the proclamation. We're all coming.
People who do substance abuse treatment are shy, apparently. Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Allen. I'm the program director for Ashby House. And our proclamation is to ask for September to be Recovery Month in Salina. And here is our proclamation. Whereas the month of September 2008 will be declared as Salina Alcohol and Drug Addiction Month, and whereas substance use disorders are serious and treatable health problems, and as many as 63% of Americans say that addiction to alcohol or other drugs has had an impact on them at some point in their lives, whether it was addiction of a friend, employee, employer, family member, or another experience, such as their own personal addiction. And whereas assessing our citizens' needs for addiction treatment and referring them to appropriate treatment and their family members to support services is a crucial first step in helping people realize that recovery is possible and treatment is effective. Whereas barriers to accessing treatment programs that can help heal lives, families, and our community are a significant problem for our neighbors, friends, co-workers, and family members with substance use disorders. And whereas community members seeking treatment deserve affordable, individualized treatment programs, and whereas recognizing those who seek treatment services for alcohol and drug use disorders, as well as those who have helped them obtain treatment, helps to overcome barriers by educating the community about the benefits of treatment, celebrating their successes, and affirming the goal that all people with alcohol and drug use disorders should have access to treatment services. And to help achieve this goal, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the Kansas Citizens Committee on Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse, and the Kansas Department of Social and Rehabilitation Services, Disability and Behavioral Health Services, Addiction and Prevention Services, Ashby House, Innovative Solutions Addiction Treatment Center, Viridian Behavioral Health, Comprehensive Counseling, Breakthrough Recovery House, St. Francis Community Services, and Central Kansas Foundation invite all residents of Kansas to participate in National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month. And I would like for you to take, I'd like to take a moment to have the people who are standing with me introduce themselves and what they do.
Yeah, my name is Roxanne Powell, and I'm a counselor assistant at Ashby House Reintegration Program.
I'm Crystal Boyle, and I am also a counselor assistant at Ashby House.
I'm Daniel Craig, and I'm the Tobacco Program Coordinator at Central Kansas Foundation.
Brian Anderson, Ashby House.
I'm Pat Oakes. I work for Addiction and Prevention Services and based here in Salina at the SRS office.
And I'm Ted Mitten, and I'm with the Tobacco Coalition.
And I'm Steve Pope, CEO of Innovative Solutions Addiction Treatment Center here in Salina.
There's one more right in the corner there.
I'm Dora, Breakthrough Counselor.
Thank you very much. Kathy, are there any special activities for the
There
month?
are. I'm going to tell you about one, and then Daniel is going to tell you about another one. The 25th, 26th, and 27th of September is the Prevention to Recovery, Recovery to Prevention Conference that was the Joy of Recovery Conference that was held last year. Salina's been picked to hold that conference again. And it's at the Bicentennial Center. We're really excited about that. A lot of recovering folks in Salina got chosen to be ambassadors for this recovery conference, and it's just going to be an amazing thing, and we hope that everybody can come and listen to the breakout sessions and learn more about how they can help families fight this disease. So that's one of the things going on. And then CKF also has something going on.
All right. And to kick off the conference, on Wednesday, September 24th, from 6 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. at Oakdale Park, there's going to be live entertainment by the Blades. There's going to be an ice cream social, and then there's going to be a silent auction. And all proceeds from this will benefit the United Way. So I think it's going to be a really neat, fun event, and the proceeds are going to a great cause.
Great.
So we invite everyone to come to that.
Thank you very much. And I have 2 signed proclamations for you, Kathy.
Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Here, you can have one.
The days of September 15th to October 15th, 2008, as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Salina. Ana Leon Marsala, member of the Hispanic Pride Committee of Salina, will read the proclamation.
Hi. My name is Ana Leon Marcela. I'm original from Cuba, Havana, Cuba, and I'm here representing the committee of Comité Hispano de Salina. I request permission to say it in Spanish.
Feel free.
Mi nombre es Ana León Marcella y soy de Cuba, de La Habana, y estoy aquí representando el Comité de Orgullo Hispano de Salina. We're going to have a little short performance before I read the proclamation, and his name is Héctor Ortega, and he's from Mexico.
Yo sé bien que estoy afuera, pero el día en que yo me muera, sé que tendrás que llorar. Dirás que no me quisiste, pero vas a estar muy triste, y así te me vas a quedar. Con dinero y sin dinero, yo hago siempre lo que quiero, y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que a mí me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. Una piedra en el camino me enseñó que mi destino era rodar y rodar. Después me dijo un arriero que no hay que llegar primero, pero hay que saber llegar. Con dinero y sin dinero, yo hago siempre lo que quiero, y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que a mí me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. Thank you.
Proclamation of the City of Salina, Kansas. Whereas American society today embraces a remarkable breadth of cultures, and Hispanics are an integral part of this diversity. The Hispanic American community is a collage of distinct groups, including people with roots in Central and South America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Spain. Whereas Hispanics have been an important part of the history and heritage of the Americas since the earliest days of European colonization, and today Hispanics Americans are the youngest and fastest growing minority community in our nation. Devoted to family, faith, country, and hard work, Hispanics bring unique perspective and experiences to our national community and character. Whereas the vibrant Hispanic influence can be seen in all aspects of American life and culture, from distinctive cuisine to colorful festivals, and from the rhythms and melodies of traditional music to the contagious beat of today's most popular songs. Whereas throughout our nation, Hispanic men and women have distinguished themselves in every endeavor, and with our cultural and linguistic ties to our trading partners throughout the Western Hemisphere, Hispanic Americans are crucial to maintaining our nation's competitiveness and prosperity in the global economy of the 21st century. Now, therefore, I, John K. Vanier II, have authorized and issue a proclamation designating September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month. In honor of the many contributions that Hispanic Americans have made and continue to make to our nation and culture, I call upon all citizens of the City of Salina to observe this month with appreciate ceremonies, activities, and programs. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Salina, Kansas, to be affixed this 8th day of September 2008. John K. Vanier, 2nd Mayor.
What activities do you have for the month?
We're having entertainment activities. It's going to be held on September 14th. It's a Sunday in Oakdale Park. It's going to be from 2:30 to 6:30, and it's a free admission, and they're going to have food and entertainment.
Great, thank you so much. I have a copy of the signed proclamation for you.
And do you want one of this?
Sure.
You can have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We have no public hearings or items scheduled for a certain time, so we'll go on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of August 25th, 2008. Item 6.2, approve the minutes of September 4th, 2008. Item 6.3, resolution number 08-6554, appointing Sherry Boyd to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Item 6.4, resolution number 08-6556, amending the Smoky Hill Museum's collections policy.
Are there any items a commissioner would like pulled from the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain action.
I'd move we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Development business.
Sorry. Item 7.1, resolution number 08-6555, approving an amendment to Chapter 6 of the Design Guidelines for Downtown Salina.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you. Mayor and Commissioners, you may recall back in January, the Commission gave final approval to a set of amendments to the Downtown Design Review Ordinance and also adopted a set of design guidelines that are used as part of the facade grant program in addition to looking at other projects within the Lee District. As part of that, a design review matrix was adopted and that's attached, and that moved a number of items that formerly went to the board into a category of minor review that could be approved administratively without going to the Lee District Design Review Board. One of those that is in the major category, however, is the demolition of a principal structure that's located in the Lee District, and that must be reviewed and approved by the board. We've cited several references there to the demolition permit process within the Lee District, and two sections there, Section 2207 and 2208. There was language in there regarding site restoration because there had been some concern by downtown property owners that there had been several sites where a building was removed and the site was not restored back to any maintainable or mowable condition. And so one of the requirements is to indicate if a building is removed, what the site will be restored to or how it will be restored. At the same time, the design guidelines were adopted, and there was a heavy emphasis in design guidelines on focusing on facade changes and new construction. And it was an oversight on staff's part to not also address that site restoration as an acceptable interim use under the guidelines as well. The current language in the guideline focuses as if new construction is the only option that should be available when a structure is removed. We've given you some illustrations there of Lee District projects. One case, the Sonic Drive-In, where there was a proposal to remove two houses on 7th, and there was a plan to redevelop back new construction. But we've also had examples of the Roosevelt Lincoln project where the old gymnasium was removed from the site. There was no plan at all in the interim or long-term future to build anything back. The plan was to remove the gym and make it green space and parking for residents. And then we've had several cases where the Regional Health Center has proposed removing rental properties they've acquired, and their restoration plan is to return it to a turf grass lot. We included in your packet just a photo illustration of a case, the St. John's Lutheran Church, where they removed 5 houses across from Roosevelt Lincoln. Their interim plan was to turn it to grass, and then they had a number of congregational meetings where they came up with a plan for a parking lot and a covered canopy over the alley. So those are all options under the demolition portion of the guidelines, and staff believes that they just need to be amended and clarified to make that clear under the guidelines as well. So this amendment went to the Design Review Board for the Lee District on the 28th of August. They reviewed it and made some suggestions about inserting some language about mobile maintainable condition, and also requested that there be a footnote added that the word plan could include a narrative description, or it could include a set of specifications. What the Regional Health Center usually does is provide the board with the specifications that they give to demolition bidders as far as what the site has to be restored back to. So those are all acceptable options. The amendment that comes before you today, you've got the following options. You could approve that as recommended by the board. You could approve it with any amendments or additions or deletions you think are appropriate. You could postpone action and refer it back to the Design Review Board, or decline to make any changes at this time. If the commission concurs with that clarifying amendment, then the attached resolution should be approved. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Questions to staff? Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
It's my understanding this essentially the same procedure that's been followed the last couple of years. It just formalizes that procedure. So
it's making the guidelines match with the ordinance and with practice.
So I would move that resolution number 086555 be adopted as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 086555 approving an amendment to Chapter 6 of the Design Guidelines for Downtown Salina. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Administration.
Item 8.1, first reading ordinance number 08-10466, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Sections 8-185, 8-186, 8-187, and 8-188 pertaining to skilled trade licenses and examinations.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. For the purpose of statewide license reciprocity, state law for the past 22 years has only recognized one testing agency which administered examinations for skilled tradesmen. This past legislative session, the state legislature amended the statutes to recognize two additional testing agencies. The Building Advisory Board at their July meeting discussed the change and the impact that this change would have on our local licensing requirements. Since the various testing agencies offer several examinations for more specialized types of journeyman or master's licenses, we felt that it was important to determine if there was any desire on the part of the board to create more subcategories of skilled trades licenses. After discussion by the board and opinions expressed by several stakeholders, the board voted to recommend preserving our current license stratification and to approve the draft language we had prepared that would change the examination requirements without changing the current licensing classifications. We provided this text for your review of what the changes would amount to in sections 185, 186, and 187. In a related matter, we would also recommend a text amendment to section 8188 in order to make the experience requirements for an applicant to take the master electrician examination compatible with state statute requirements. The following correction that we've noted would make the application requirements consistent with state law. There will be no fiscal impact to the city by making this change. The Commission's possible action for consideration could take no action at this time, resulting in the city's licensing ordinance for skilled tradesmen being inconsistent with current state requirements. Adopt the ordinance on first reading after making any specific changes that would be determined by the Commission, or to adopt the ordinance on first reading as recommended by staff and the Building Advisory Board. Staff recommendation would be to recommend alternative number 3. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have with regard to this matter.
Questions, Mr. Roberts? This has been through the Building Advisory Board, and the changes met with their approval?
This recommendation came from the Advisory Board, yes.
May I offer one clarification in that regard? The Building Advisory Board, this has been through the Building Advisory Board, and it pertains to skilled tradesmen, heating, electrical, plumbing, and solid fuel appliance installers. The Building Advisory Board is also currently discussing contractor licensing, and that discussion is ongoing. So I just want to make sure that I may be making it worse instead of better.
Don't go there, okay, or not right now.
Okay, just wanted to clarify this is only pertaining to skilled tradesmen.
Understand. Any other questions for Mr. Roberts? Public comment? bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 0810466 on first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt on first reading ordinance number 0810466, which amends Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Sections 8, 185, 8, 186, 8, 187, 8, 188. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Item 8.2, resolution number 08-6546, expressing support of a new comprehensive transportation program.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you. I'm handing out right there a better looking map for you all. It's a colored map. The one that we have in here was black and white and very hard to read. So I thought for all of us to discuss, and if there's any questions about specific projects, at least you have a good map to look at. And since our last study session on August 18th, staff had various discussions with the League of Kansas Municipalities and the county, as well as Salina Airport Authority, OCCK, and the Chamber of Commerce. And basically it was discussed and decided that a more regional approach to this resolution would be in order. And with Tim Rogers as the chair of the T-Link committee, he will be facilitating discussions across the state and for various municipalities and counties and groups across the state to solicit input for a new comprehensive transportation plan. Thus, the city and the county and the various groups I've discussed, we all met and decided that we'd have a fairly large list of projects there to try and cover as much as we could think of in the next 10 years and have all modes of transportation covered to the best of our ability. So on there you'll see transit, you'll see bikeway pedestrian access, rail, as well as streets and roads, which is what we discussed with you on August 18th. We thought, and then interchange projects. We added 2 interchange projects to that list. So it's a fairly hefty list of projects, maybe more of a wish list, but it's also, as the city grows and with our comprehensive plan that is being put together currently, this is consistent with where Salina is headed as well as our region. The city and these groups we will meet with over in Abilene on September 18th to discuss this to the T-Link committee and make our case for a new and great comprehensive transportation plan. The caveat to that is funding of it, and that they asked us to be ready to discuss how to fund this program. So that's one thing that's been interesting to think about as they're going to ask for input from everybody on the best ways maybe to come up with funding this program, because they know the needs are large and the funding is not there. So it's something that we'll be discussing and be learning more about over the next few months as they go across the state and take input from various entities. I'll take any questions.
Questions to staff?
Who came up with the idea that we need a new interchange at Simpson Road and I-70?
Well, looking at the routes for the southern part of the city and the eastern part of the city, that was the logical place. Simpson is one of the county's grid. They're coming up with a 2-mile grid system, and that is one of their main roads that is actually, I believe, mostly paved, they talked about, and it's one of their long-range plans to have a paved road around the outside of the city, which would take us down to, I believe, is it Waterwell, I believe. It would get us down to Waterwell, and that would help access around the city more or less. It's kind of looked at as a possible bypass around the city.
Who else going to this meeting in Abilene that you referenced?
It'll be the city and the county. The resolution is a city-county resolution. The Airport Authority and OCCK and Great Plains. I forgot to mention Great Plains, the Great Plains Joint Regional Training Center. We also have a letter from them with support for this program. So As far as who will go, I know the county and us will go. Just not sure how many, do you know how many other will attend with us? I think there will be a lot of groups there. I'm just not sure how many.
No, we're not sure at this point, Commissioners, and if any of you are interested, I think that hearing from the elected officials directly is pretty helpful as well. So you can coordinate with LaDonna and we could, see you there.
It's my understanding that this is to let our legislature know that we have many, many projects that are needed and are on our list for the future in order for them to develop the appropriate funding as far as grants,
That is
matches,
correct.
things like that.
Yeah, this does not actually determine what the final plan will be. What it does is help provide a list of the needs so that when they go into their funding discussions, they can see that the needs are justified and hopefully we get a well-funded plan. And then later on, we obviously would submit for specific projects that may or may not necessarily include these. It just all depends on the needs at that time.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff?
On the narrative, which I guess is incorporated in the resolution by reference, is that correct? There's a bit of troublesome language on tax on page 3, where it says increase Kansas highway use tax on car sales. I thought, isn't that two separate things? There's a use tax, which I believe is incorporated with the annual renewal of your license plate. And then there's the sales tax on cars, which is the same as sales tax anyway. So what are they really trying to go after there, I guess, is my question.
I guess to reference this, I should thank the county because the county did a lot of text on this document and in discussions with us, but these were just some of the ideas that were discussed for how to fund a new program. But you're right, that is not, I don't believe that makes very much sense, so we can look and see what the point of that was.
Well, I would support some kind of a tax increase that related to the annual renewal of your license plates for your cars.
Okay.
Some kind of a use tax tied to the existence of your car that's going to be on the road. But
okay.
Sales tax ought to be the same sales tax we're already dealing with.
Right.
So we word that to clarify that, or?
I don't know how we word that to clarify that.
But you got a good point. It is confusing.
Commissioner, since that's part of the narrative, I think if you approve this, we can come up with some narrative that meets your intent for you, if you like.
Okay.
I did try to put the date on there so that we knew that when we revise it that we would have a new date. That would make, I wondered if there would be some, there was a lot of text here. I wasn't sure exactly how much of it would be. Okay, just making sure we had everything in here was a challenge.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you.
This being a resolution, it's not going to come back for a second reading or anything.
Yeah, that's correct. So if the only question was the issue on that one line regarding the use tax, we can correct that. I think we're pretty clear on the intent if the commissioners are in agreement with that.
Well, that and whether we really want to push another interchange on I-70. The interchange portion of that, I mean, I agree with the improvement from Highway 140 or the old 40 south makes a lot of sense, but to go north from 140 and have a new interchange seems contrary to a lot of efforts that have been in our comprehensive plans, both the city and the county, the last times they've been reviewed, and even in the current discussion that we want to try to preserve prime agricultural land and limit sprawl of the city. To me, I drove up that thing today just to see what it looks like again, and it's 100% floodplain agricultural land. It really doesn't look like a place where you want to encourage more traffic and potentially more development.
Yeah, and quite honestly, that type of project would need a lot more thought if we were really talking about moving forward with it. My initial thought is again, this really came from the county's list, and it's probably longer than 10 years out if it's ever going to happen at all. But at this stage of the game, it probably doesn't hurt to have that as a potential vision project because it doesn't actually end up being our list. And again, we can look at these projects as we go along and we submit for real funding with them. But it just does show that there's need out there, whether it's this interchange or another interchange, that there's going to be some needs, and that's really the intent right now.
Unless I missed it here, there's nothing about paving the road from I-70, I'm sorry, from Old 40 to I-70, which I would think you need to do if you're going to put an interchange.
I think we're getting bogged down in the details on
right.
this. This is more or less just a big bucket, and we're going to
That's
throw it
great.
against the wall and see what sticks.
That's the way this game works.
Are there any other questions of staff?
So that's a throwaway.
Any public comment? Thank you, Mr. Stack.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd move we approve resolution number 08-6546 in support of the enactment of a new comprehensive transportation program by the Kansas legislature and direct staff to clarify the use tax language.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass resolution number 08-6546 expressing support of the new comprehensive transportation program. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Item 8.3, award of the 2008 solid waste venture grants.
Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This year, the city manager authorized $50,000 for solid waste venture grants. We only received one application, and that was from a student group at Kansas Wesleyan University. It is Project Hunt, Help Unite Neighbors Together for Green. They also have membership with students in K-State Salina. They submitted an application to the city for a recycling vehicle and educational materials. Their total project cost was $33,439. Their request was for a grant of 90% of that, $30,095, with a match of 10%, $3,344. The proposed vehicle would be used to collect recycling materials at schools and stadiums, and the educational materials would be used to increase awareness about recycling to students as well as small to mid-sized businesses in the community. Some of the specific programs that are involved in the grant: environmental leadership training sessions for high school senior students, waste reduction education presentations for elementary schools, plastic bottle and aluminum can recycling collection programs throughout sports stadiums, and vermicomposting, and that's like food waste is what that is, food waste recycling education programs for schools and businesses. Subcommittee met to discuss the proposal on August 14th, and they did express some concerns about a student group owning a vehicle. Some of those issues involved graduation and turnover of students, licensing types of problems with insurance and licensing the vehicle, and maintenance issues. So the time period during the solid waste subcommittee's meeting and the meeting of the full solid waste committee, there were discussions with staff how we might be able to deal with this, and that the applicant then approached Kansas Wesleyan University about the possibility to be able to have the grant awarded to the university rather than the student group, and that the university was favorable with that recommendation. The committee also expressed some concerns about the percentage splits, which were not typically awarded in that amount in the past. Anyway, we went through those issues. Then on August 28th, the Solid Waste Committee then met and discussed the request. Their recommendation to the City Commission is to award the grant to Kansas Wesleyan University by providing the electric vehicle at a split of 75% grant, 25% match, plus awarding the educational materials at a 90% grant and 10% match. And this is much more in line with traditional awards that we've done over the last 10 years. How we've broken that up is that for recycling programs that are yard waste based, it's usually been 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 grant, 1/3 match. For non-yard waste recycling types of programs that, like for glass, plastic, and those types of things, we've traditionally awarded grants at 75%, 25% match, and that for strictly educational programs, we've awarded those at 90% grant and 10% match. So their recommendation falls more in line with what we've traditionally done. Specifically with this particular project is that the grant would, that is being recommended is for the recycling vehicle. That would be a grant of $19,309.50, or 75% of that. They would come up with a match, the university would there, of $6,436.50, or 25%. The educational materials would be split 90-10, with $6,923.70 grant and a match of $769.30. Sufficient funds are available in the solid waste budget there to be able to handle this. I think we have an excess at this point of somewhere over $275,000 in that account. So we definitely have money to be able to cover this. Staff recommends the City Commission approve the award of the 2008 Solid Waste Venture Grant to Kansas Wesleyan University in the amount of $26,233.20 for the purchase of an electric recycling vehicle and for educational materials. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of staff?
First. The first question, it doesn't really say in here whether this is a one-semester project or 4 or 5 years or what. What's the actual scope of this? There's also no discussion of whether this is coordinated with Images Recycling or if the material's going someplace else.
We do have Dane Baxa here with us. Dane, if you wanted to come up here, and maybe you could probably do a better job than I of explaining the details of the program.
Okay. Mayor, City Commissioners, to address this sustainability issue and the prolonging, it is going to be a program that's going to last 4 to 5 years and can possibly continue on after that. One of the questions that we addressed was the sustainability of the program, and I sat down with, which is here today, President Kerstetter, CEO of Kansas Wesleyan, and we talked about possibilities for the program to keep sustaining. And one of the things that we drew up is a position like a director of environmental management for Kansas Wesleyan. This is a student position. It'll pay $500 to $800 a year. We'll hold applications. It'll be a process. This person will be elected, and that person will be in charge of the entire Project Hunt for Green program. Their duties will include coordinating the electric truck usage, where they're going to set the bins up, not just at sports stadiums, but during football sports stadiums, and then in the winter, moving into the basketball stadiums, going to the Bice Center for the big tournaments, as well as possibly doing it at the River Festival and other kind of mainstream events. Like those duties will fall underneath that position. And so that kind of handles, and previous, I was just looking at previous contracts that were awarded in the past. They are for like 5-year terms. And so we could draw up, if we want this program to last 5 years, and if it doesn't, then, we return the machine or the money or whatever. So I'm not exactly sure of the contract process, but it's been done in the past for 5 years. So.
Yeah, typically what we've done with contracts for capital items is that if the applicant that receives grant award funds sells the equipment, or they go out of business, or for some reason is that they're not able to continue, is that that equipment for the first 3 years of the agreement would revert back to the city. Beyond that time period, then it becomes the property of the recipient of the grant and the traditional other contracts that we've awarded.
And that type of contract will be in place?
Yes, correct.
Other questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
seems like a great idea. So I would move that we approve the award of a 2008 solid waste venture grant to Kansas Western University in the amount of $26,233.20 for the purchase of a recycling vehicle and for educational materials.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award the 2008 solid waste venture grant to Kansas Wesleyan University. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.4, update on the OCCK fixed route transportation system.
Mr. Frazier.
On August 12th, the OCCK sent out a letter to a number of residents in the community telling them about the upcoming transit program that they have and is ready to be launched. In that letter, they talked about the fact that their location was a preliminary site for a bus stop, and that they would be given an opportunity to come to a public hearing on August 27th to be able to listen to a presentation and to be able to provide comments concerning the proposed bus stops. In addition, they were told that the City Commission would consider a contract with OCCK on today, September 8th, which would give them another opportunity to be able to voice their comments. At the public hearing, we had over 100 people that took part in that event. It was about 2.5 hours long, and Pat Wallerius, the Vice President and CFO of OCCK, gave an overview of the program, and then OCCK staff, along with city staff, answered a number of questions that were posed in a general session. These comments range from how the routes were designed to questions about why certain locations were chosen for a bus stop. Some members of the audience voiced a concern about the negative impacts that these bus stops would have on their private property. They expressed that property values of their homes could go down. There would be possible damage to their property, the problems of people standing out at all hours of the day and night in front of their homes. They also had comments of increased liability to homeowners with more people walking on their sidewalks. In addition, they expressed some concerns related to litter that these locations would generate. Although there were a number of people that were obviously concerned about these bus stop locations in front of their homes, the larger share of the audience seemed to be very supportive of the bus systems and the benefits that it would bring to the people in the community that don't have vehicles or that could use mass transit. After the general session, we broke out into smaller breakout groups based on the routes, and that we spent time talking about specific issues and problems that they had. What we did, we collected all that information and we tried to process that. Is that on September 2nd and on September 4th of last week, OCCK and city staff met to address these concerns. We had a list of about 37 different locations where people had some specific problems and concerns. We went through that information, and staff has evaluated these public requests to change the bus stop locations based on a criteria list that we've developed that would give us the information that would help us make a good decision if this is a good stop or if it isn't. Considerations are also given to the bus stop locations if they are on busy streets or on sidewalks. And those are some new criteria that is not in your list that you were given, but some things that we came up with and talked about on Thursday and Friday after the memo was written that we need to also consider. So we're also going to be considering the sidewalk issues that didn't really appear in the sheet that you have before you today. OCCK is planning a second round of letters to be sent out. We had hoped for that to go out this week, but because of some of the other issues that we need to look into, it may well be 2 weeks before we're able to send those letters out. We're really just not sure at this time when we're going to be able to send those to the group of people that are going to be receiving a notification that we're planning to put a bus stop in front of their home. Anyway, is that these property owners will be given the same opportunity as the first group to be able to provide input and comments concerning the route and these locations. There will be a second public hearing, and that we do plan to be able to notify the first group of persons that presented us with specific problems of a letter that tells them the status of their request. And most of those persons requested that the bus stop be moved to another location as opposed to keeping it in front of their home. But we will let them know by letter, you know, what their status is. Either we've moved it to another location, which is this location, or that, no, we really can't find a better spot than that, so it needs to stay where it is. After the expected second public hearing, OCC and city staff would go through the information to try to be able to help them understand the best we can of what we're trying to accomplish with this. One of the things that we're encountering with this whole process is that we seem to have a general support for the bus system, but there's a number of people that really just don't want to have it in front of their home. So what we've done, like I said, we've come up with a criteria sheet to be able to help us make a good decision. Is it where is the best place for this bus stop, as opposed to, you know, who complains and trying to be able to work around that. So basically, within the next 3 weeks, staff expects to bring before the City Commission a contract with OCCK that would formalize the contractual agreement. In addition, the City Commission will be asked to take action establishing no parking zones associated with the bus stop locations. So that should be coming to you at the same time the contract does. Previously, the City Commission authorized funding for the public transit system in the amount of about $434,000 over fiscal year 2008 and 2009. Since the August 12th letter from OCCK advising property owners of the City Commission consideration of contract on September 8th, this report has remained on the agenda. In light of the ongoing route discussions here, we are recommending that no action be taken at this time by the City Commission. We have with us Pat Wallerius from OCCK that would be happy to answer any questions that I might not be able to answer concerning the status of the bus routes. I'd be happy to try to address any of those questions.
Questions of staff?
I'm curious, assuming this program is successful, and I didn't make the first meeting, so maybe this has been clarified, but assuming this program is successful and we eventually start looking at more permanent-looking bus stop locations, how do we foresee that? I mean, do we have any sort of conceptual?
Well, one of the things that we'll learn pretty quickly in the next few months are where the stops really should be. And OCCK has put a lot of work into this. The folks at the University of Kansas have been a big part of this and really helped guide everyone through the process. But it's still an experiment, quite honestly. So the first thing we want to determine in the first year is really where should all the stops be. We may find that quite a few of them need to move. We may find that a lot of them are in a pretty good spot. So based on the information we have, so the next step would be, once we determine where they should be, is we'll be looking at probably putting in some concrete pads at that point in time. In the meantime, we will look, because if there are really busy places early on that suggest that those are going to be permanent spots, we'll want to make sure that they're not creating a problem, trampling grass in the right-of-way and those types of things. So we'll be sensitive to that as well. We haven't gone as far as to say certain places should have shelters or not, because shelters get into a whole different expense. So we want to be very careful before we step into that realm, but certainly that would possibly be a conversation. The hope is, and quite honestly, we don't know what the ridership will be. We hope that we can keep them pretty full, and that we have a lot of those problems that we need to address, because it means it's being utilized, which is a really good thing. One thing to keep in mind, too, is that the matching funding for whatever we might do in the future will come, at this point, would come from the city or be a request of the city. So that's one reason that we're pretty integrally involved in this, is because we are the local funding source to help match the federal funding that comes through the state for this program. So any change in the program, whether it be concrete pads or whether we're looking at changes in signage or trash cans or anything like that that's a significant spending item at all, will certainly come back to the five of you for discussion first to make sure that you're on board with that and agree with the need.
When you say concrete pads, do you mean right now they're going to be putting some signs, and this is specifically for the neighborhoods? The area from the curb, I believe, to the sidewalk, which is city property, is right now, I'm guessing, what, 95% grass. So if that becomes a permanent stop, you're going to take that, eliminate the grass, and it's going to all become the concrete pad?
Yeah, and I can't say what the dimension would be. It may depend on the, how well that site's utilized. But rather than basically trample grass, if it's used enough to where that could be an issue, eventually there would be some form of a concrete pad that would hopefully be the proper size to accommodate the number of folks who would use that site.
And I understand that all of those spots will become non-parking zones. So will that curb be painted as a non-parking area?
That's correct. Is it the curb would be painted in front of the stop? It's difficult to say how much of that would be painted, because a lot of that is dependent on site distance issues at each location. So we've calculated at each bus stop location, the site distance measurements that we're going to need to have. We are putting, I believe, 23, 24-foot buses into the system right now, but our planning model accounts for 30-foot buses, so that when they go to larger buses, is that we would be able to accommodate that without having to rework this again.
So a lot of people park, a lot of citizens park in front of their home, right there at the curb. So I imagine that was part of the complaints.
Yeah, there were definitely concerns expressed for a number of different reasons, but one of them is that we utilize that space right now for parking at our home, and that now that space would not be utilized by the resident or the homeowner.
And if that spot is removed, if that bus stop is removed because it's not going to be feasible, do you unpaint then that?
Well, we'd have a number of choices in that case. Is that one of those would be to paint over, or the other choice would be to do sandblasting. So one of the two choices would help either cover it up with a gray-colored type of paint, or to sandblast those off. Those would be our two choices. Okay. One of the things that Jason said that really is important, we're spending a great amount of time behind the scenes working with OCCK to try to do the logistics on these 140 stops, and every one has its own personality, to try to deal with the issues at that spot. So that's quite a job. The thing about it is, even when we finish this process in the next couple weeks, is it may not look like that 6 months from now.
Right.
Is it based on, like what Jason said, with ridership and those types of issues? Not all bus stops will have a shelter. Not all bus stops will have a bench. Not all bus stops will have a pad. But we don't know what is going to be where. A lot of those decisions will be based on ridership and that. And those are things that we're going to probably determine over the first, I would imagine, 3 to 6 months of operation with the program. And from that, we can make some better decisions as where do we want to put some of those other things in there to be able to help deal with the number of people that are going to be at that site.
If I may quote Pat, I think he said it is a work in progress.
Yes.
Be patient.
And Commissioners, we learned, there were quite a few good questions at the public hearing, and we're very thankful for OCCK hosting that. But, for example, there were questions about, will this affect my homeowner's insurance? And we've gone back and talked to some insurance agents, and the answer back is no, it shouldn't affect your homeowner's insurance. Questions about, well, now do I have to sweep or push the snow off my sidewalk quicker than I would under the current city regulations? And our answer is no, we're not changing your obligation there just because we place a stop there. Questions about, what about trash accumulating? And we've indicated, First of all, we'd like to think that in most of the areas that there's enough pride that people won't leave their trash in front of their neighbor, because most of the folks that are going to be at a stop are going to be in front of their neighbor. But if we do see there is an issue and it's reported to us, we recognize we may have to buy some trash cans and put them in those places. Not believing that we probably would need one at every location, but again, it just depends on those stops that are used the most. So we're trying to respond to a lot of those questions, and those are pretty consistent across the board.
Yeah, there was one of the persons at the public hearing brought up what I thought was a really good idea, and we want to explore it a little bit more, but they talked about the possibility of starting a sidewalk replacement program of sorts that could be connected to the transit system. So we're going to explore that a little bit and see what we might be able to do to be able to see if we could package something up to present to see if that's a program that anybody would be interested in. But I think that the idea would be a cost-sharing type of program to be able to improve sidewalks and that. So I think there was a lot of good information that came out of there, and we really appreciate the public comments because they brought up a lot of things, quite truthfully, that really hadn't been addressed or really thought about. And I think it was helpful to be able to hear their opinions so that we could go back and say, okay, how can we make this work, or what can we do to be able to help accomplish that? So it was very positive, even though there were some people that were, obviously concerned. I think that they brought up some very good points that we're taking a look at right now.
Other questions of staff? I'll open it up for public comment and hope that everyone realizes no action is going to be taken today, but we will take your public comment. Thank you. And if you would please give us your name and address.
Drew Frazier, 830 South Santa Fe. I have a question too regarding the National Historical Registry. We're in historical district, and what are we looking about doing? One of the situations we have in our block too, and I'm speaking from my neighbor across the street, just like my second mother. We have single driveways. We have no access to a driveway other way through, with the single path. You have to, so be able to use the parking in front of your home is imperative for people to live on that block. Aaron himself knows that. His father lives next door to her. And they use their front parking. I know his father doesn't want to give up his front parking, and that's something that's a concern. And also, what would you do if you did, refuse and go ahead and put a stop there? What would you do for the aesthetics of it when it's an historical district? Do you just put a park bench there? There's a different criteria in a natural, historic society area, and for homes than what there is in the rest of the community too. So what will you do at those bus stops?
Well, I think you bring up a good point with that. Is that that's something that we're going to need to take a look at and see. Like for many of these things here, is that we don't have an answer right at this point in time to be able to give you. But I can assure you that we're definitely interested in your concerns, and that we're willing to sit down and talk with you outside to be able to see if we can take a look at that and see what might be done. I know that you were there at the public hearing. I remember you at the public hearing, and that. I can say, not with great detail, but I can say that many of the issues that were brought up at the public hearing, we feel that we can be able to address and accommodate, because the criteria that we've set up does allow for some changes in what the original route system has been. As a matter of fact, the route system continues to change. Even this morning, we have additional changes to that. So some of the things that may have been a problem a week ago or 2 weeks ago may not be a problem now, because we may have moved past that. So if you see me after the meeting, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you about that and address your specific problem.
Okay. Sure, I spoke with Pat too after that meeting. He also talked about alternative site for that stop too that we discussed after that meeting. So I don't know, maybe that's already been changed at this point. So.
Yeah, I think the one thing for everybody to remember with this is that these decisions are based on the criteria, not on a complaint or how someone might more aggressively complain about it. Sure. It's really based on what makes sense for the integrity of the system. And that there's some people that quite truthfully may bring up points that are well taken, but that's where that stop has to be. I mean, there's no way around it. But when we apply these to that criteria, and there are options and other things that can be done, is that we're more than willing to be able to see if we can come up with a solution that everybody is comfortable with.
Certainly that, I was going to say certainly that location, I can't speak for anyone designing this, but certainly there's a location further to the north that seems to make complete sense. But that is an interesting question. Do we, with regard to the National Historic Register, are we able to?
That's what I'm wondering. Can you even
make alterations?
Even put that in that area?
This would be directly across the street from a home that is on the National Historic Register. But
that is, as I said before, is that some of these things we've not looked at.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to do it right. We want to do it right the first time. So that's why it's taken a little bit longer. We want to be able to address these things. So we're more than happy to look into that issue and be able to explain what are our options and then which option really does yield the best for the integrity of the program.
Yeah. Commissioners, two issues on that. One is we're going to have a lot of these streets that have single lane driveways or no driveways at all. Maybe they just have alley access, and we're just going to have to try to figure out in there which creates the least amount of nuisance for all the folks, because obviously the stop is there to benefit those who live there. So that one, Mike's right, we'll just have to follow up and look at these from a case-by-case basis. The historical perspective, and I'll ask Dean to step in if I step off of this, but in my understanding is the environments are really an issue with other structures. One thing with the signs, these are, correct me if I'm wrong, black powder-coated poles with cantilevered signs. They're going to look pretty nice, actually, and in fact, they're really going to fit in pretty nicely in there. We're not just talking about the galvanized poles. So we did want these to look nice across the community. So I think from that perspective, they'll look fine, but I'm not aware, and I'll forward this to Dean, that there's a technical issue with the historic district.
Not really, except in the nature of any kind of permanent type improvement. But if you're just looking at surfacing for a stop, I mean, we have the same type of light poles in the right-of-way in historic districts that we do in other places, same types of traffic signs. So it would really probably only be an issue if we had some sort of physical shelter or structure that got built, but otherwise I wouldn't see any implications.
So these will actually be an enhancement when you compare them to the type of signs that are already in there, in that area, which is good.
I've seen the signs. The signs are nice, you know. We're not opposed to the system at all. It's just that I still believe that it will affect the property value of that home when you live, like, say, I have no alley on my side, like, there'll be people that'll be involved with that on the other side of the street when the route goes to the south. But when you only have that parking there, and then also, regardless, when you end up putting a structure there, and you have the sign, you have the slab, you have the trash can, and just say that becomes a popular stop. And then so you completely do the entire, location like you would, with the structure and the bench and the trash can and everything, that it's going to hurt the property value of that home.
I would say we're a long ways away from thinking about putting structures anywhere. Those are a pretty high cost, and they add other responsibilities. And in the first year, you're not going to see any talk of structures whatsoever. And even in future years, we'll just have to look. But there would definitely be some type of a comment period, review, conversation with all the property owners on these structures, because that is a pretty big deal.
Even without the structure there, once you paint that no parking on the yellow, that pretty much is, that right there affects the property value itself. Even without more structure or anything, that takes away that parking for that particular home in that neighborhood, and it's going to affect the property value. And it will. I know the city doesn't want to, or probably is not planning on compensating the people that they're taking that access away from in front of their homes for parking.
No.
So, I mean, we really should look at that. And I'll follow up with you some more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And, I'll talk to you after the meeting.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Thank
you.
Other public comment? If not, I'd like to thank everyone for the work they're putting into it. And again, there will be at least one more public meeting, correct? Yes. And letters will go out, and staff is very much interested in everyone's comments to make this work best for the entire community.
Mayor, I'd move we recess into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege and adversely affect the city's interest in the matters, and reconvene in this room at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn to executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. And do you anticipate any action?
We do not.
Okay, we're in executive session.
Historically, they had